Pose for the camera. Take one. Pass it down. Auburn football. It's over. It is over. Don't get it. Come back up here. I can barely hear the music in this station.
Fired up.
Yeah.
Fired up, baby.
Can y'all hear the return?
Yeah.
The return.
Yeah, from the station.
Return. Yes, I can hear the return. I am the return.
I am the one who starts.
Yeah, where is
I am the danger, Skyler.
Oh, God. Press box.
Alright, well, I gotta put this.
Go to the press block and take a left.
Through the doors.
She says, okay.
Thank you, Jalen.
Jim Harris. Thank you. All right.
Alright, we got 1 minute.
Here, come on.
You got 30 seconds.
Alright,
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
This Auburn defense. The LSU offense ranks first in the SEC in scoring, and the Auburn defense is coming off of a bye week, giving up 27 points to the Georgia Bulldogs. First off, let's talk about number 5. Jaden Daniels is building his resume to enter the Heisman conversation, and even Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze said, "You can't stop the guy. You can only hope to contain him." So, first question, what has Jaden done over the past weeks that has helped him elevate his game to the next level?
He made the progressions that we all expected him to, and he's showcasing it at the highest level at an elite clip. And it's clear and obvious that Jaden Daniels is in this Heisman conversation. He's been making the easy plays. He's been making the hard plays. He's doing what he has to do to put LSU in a position to win.
For me, it's that deep ball that he's elevated, especially just from last season. That's exactly what we all said he needed to do at the end of last season. It was something he was missing, and he's done exactly that. Jaden Daniels is the highest graded quarterback in the country on throws 20 yards or more by PFF's grading. He's absolutely lethal down the field, and then when you even try to defend his aerial attack, he beats you on the ground anyway.
Yeah, I think Jaden has just allowed himself to really play freely, and that comes with that confidence that he's been building up week by week and trusting that deep ball and launching it whenever he gets the chance. He's using his legs when receivers aren't open. He's just playing smart. Really, that's really the biggest thing. He's playing the smartest football in the country right now. But what does Jaden need to do this week specifically against Auburn, who can really get to the quarterback and pressure?
He's got to use his talents. He's got to use his legs. That's what he's a huge part of his skill set. That's why he's considered an elite scrambler in the country. He has the, I believe, 6th most rushing yards in the SEC, and that's behind 5 other running backs.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say the exact same thing he's done all season up to this point. Make his reads if he needs to, get out of the pocket. Last season, Jaden showcased a lot of the talent, but one of those biggest question marks with him was his decision-making. Now, like you said, this year he's playing some of the smartest football in the country,
Yep.
and that's not even an issue anymore.
Yeah, and Jaden really just has to stay patient this week. I think with Auburn team will blitz a lot, and you will have to recognize when they blitz, and so get the ball out quickly when they do blitz, and also just take what the defense gives you. This is a team that drops 5 back. You're going to have to just take what you can get, and just be able to improvise. He's been able to do it these past 3 weeks really well. Just keep doing what you've been doing. So the LSU running backs versus this Auburn defense. The LSU running back room has been stellar throughout the half point of the season, especially Logan Diggs, who seems to be the running back 1 for LSU now. His team ranks first in the SEC in rushing yards, so let's talk about that. We will see the LSU offense utilize the running game more in this game, or especially with Auburn dropping back, do you think it's going to be more utilized?
You have to use all of your weapons that you got when you got one of the top quarterbacks in the nation, especially a very complete running back room. There's a reason LSU has the top rushing defense in the SEC. A big reason is, of course, Jaden Daniels. You also have to look at the guys like Logan Diggs and Josh Williams, who have been consistent backs in the backfield that have really been able to excel that type of play. But one thing that I will say, you can't make those plays when you're throwing the guys in triple coverage, like we saw at the end of Ole Miss. I know that's more of a desperation play at the end of the day, but at the same time, make sure that you give your running backs the ability to make the easy plays and do something on the ground with their legs. Guys like Caleb Jackson and Logan Diggs are guys that you can get out in the flats and just give them the opportunity to make something happen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think you absolutely have to use the running game this weekend. You saw just how dangerous it can be when we played against Mizzou. And they have a decent run defense, too. It's not bad at all. Logan Diggs has shown that he can take on that kind of workload and still be extremely productive. And I just don't see a reason why he can't do the same thing against Auburn.
Yeah, I think LSU's rush attack could very well go for 200 yards this weekend, especially when you look at how successfully they did against Mizzou, even when passing it last week. So I think just knowing when to run it is really the big deal for LSU. They did really well on third downs and longs. They actually ran the ball and were very successful in that. I think just throwing teams off and loading it when the box is loaded, do that. But how does the Auburn defensive line hold up against the rushing attack of LSU?
Not very good, in my opinion. Auburn, right now, they're averaging 128 yards allowed on the ground per game. And LSU's coming off a game where they had almost 300 rushing yards against Mizzou. Granted, over 100 of that came from Jaden Daniels, but that's besides the point. Still rushing yards. So I don't see why they can't repeat that production to an even higher level this week.
Yep. Right, and so you see with this Auburn defense, typically drop 5 backs. That's obviously going to open up some stuff in the box for LSU to exploit, shoot up the A gap and the B gap. When you look at the rushing attack, you just got to keep your head down. Just make sure you get all those yards that you can. There's going to be guys that are going to be dropping back in the coverage that'll come up on you, and they'll see you coming, so you got to make sure to just plow right through them, because those are DBs that are going to be back there dropping back. And you're a running back, and running backs are big, strong, tough guys, so you got to plow right through those DBs. So just when it comes to the rushing attack, just make sure that you're using it in the right situation, and don't feel that you have to rush the ball because they're dropping 5 back.
Yeah, I agree. I think Auburn overall, their rush defense isn't horrible. I think last week they held 2 weeks ago, they held Georgia to 107 yards rushing. That's pretty good. Obviously, Carson Beck threw for 300, but I think they will struggle in this game, especially when LSU starts to establish the run game. When they commit to it, that's when Auburn's going to find a problem in it. But for LSU, should they utilize their running backs more in the passing game, with Diggs kind of being that starting running back now?
So Diggs is obviously the guy back there. You've seen guys take up other roles. I was at the Brian Kelly press conference yesterday, and I asked him about what the deal with the running back room is, specifically with John Emery, because John Emery, we've seen John Emery be used in that passing attack. We saw it last year against Alabama with that 30-yard dump-off throw, and he made something happen. Like, John Emery has the ability to make something happen. When I asked Brian Kelly, he said that we're going with the high hand as of right now. We want to go with someone that's really been that guy as of late, and that guy has been Logan Diggs. Everybody will be suited up, though, so don't be surprised if we pull out all the stops and try and beat a stalwart defense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't even know if I see a reason really to get those running backs involved in the passing game. What you're doing right now is working. Logan Diggs, like I said earlier, he's doing an outstanding job of being that workhorse guy and taking on that load and being productive with it. And then you have receivers that make up arguably one of the best duos in the country as far as your passing attack. So you know your passing attack's just fine how it is. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, in my opinion.
I love it. And with Diggs being in the prime, the prime back for the rush game, it should stay that way. But I think LSU has to allow guys like Josh Williams, John Emery to come out and make plays in the passing game. LSU has fresh legs, right? That's something they do not struggle with at all. So use that to your advantage this week. But LSU's offensive line, now we're going to shift to their against the Auburn defensive line, LSU's offensive line has been very good at the half-point season, but the penalties, they're starting to kind of, hold this offense back at times. Auburn's defensive line always proves to be solid against the rush, attack, and getting pressure of the quarterback, but this year it hasn't been that. So, but this year they're led by Marcus Harris, who has 2 sacks on the season. But what does LSU have to do to make sure Jaden Daniels doesn't take the hard hits come tomorrow night?
You got to make sure that you protect the quarterback. A lot of the times, when you see Jaden take these big hits, they're not behind the line of scrimmage. A lot of them are when he's out there as a runner. He takes a couple cheap hits, like we saw during Mizzou on that touchdown that got called back. On the touchdown that he ran in for, he kind of took a hit in the end zone. At the end of the day, it's not really the offensive line that has been the culprit behind allowing Jaden to get hit. Jaden is more more is like putting himself out there
I agree.
and
That's true.
taking risks, which I love. I love taking risks. However, it's a risk.
But with him being banged up, he can't afford to take those hits back back in the pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, as far as Jane Daniels taking those hits, like you said, Lewis, it's kind of on him. He's got to learn to protect himself a little bit more. The offensive line, in my opinion, has been doing an outstanding job. They're doing exactly what you need them to do. This weekend, I say just have it go the same way you have with Campbell, Dellinger, Turner, Frazier, and Jones from left to right. That's been working really well for you so far.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both of you guys. Like we said, but with him being banged up, that's kind of where I'm at. I think with Daniels, he can't afford to take those hits in the pocket, especially not from big old guys from Auburn. So I think LSU's just going to have to be able to communicate well with how much they blitz. LSU's offensive line is going to have to be able to pick up on it. But as far as Auburn's attack against Daniels, I mean, who are some guys on that Auburn defense that could be trouble for LSU?
You got to look out for Mosiah Nasili-Kite. Now, this Auburn defensive line, they don't have a lot of superstar power, like you said. Their top guy has 2 sacks on the year. But this guy, Nasili-Kite, he's a guy that Auburn brought in to help fix their problems with the D-line. He's a Maryland transfer looking to have his first big game. He had a halfway decent game against UGA when they last played, racking up a couple sacks and a tackle for loss. When you look at a guy like that, he's a big guy that can get in there, a veteran leader that's going to be able to get in there and get to the quarterback. A lot of the times, though, LSU's going to have their way against these defensive linemen because they don't allow many sacks.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there just isn't really any guy in particular who stands out totally. This Auburn team is just bad, kind of from top to bottom, really, when you look at it. But they're 80th in the country in sacks right now.
Yep.
Jane Daniels is 31st in sacks allowed per game. I just don't really see this being much of an issue.
Now, I will say this, Nathan. You did say that Arkansas is not very good.
I did say that.
And look, and we saw what happened. However, you did have a couple correct picks against Auburn at the Andre Sam interception. So
more than a couple that week. But Auburn has very physical linebackers, I think, that can really pressure the quarterback. I don't think it's their defensive line that stands out.
Right.
It's those physical linebackers. And one of those guys they're going to have to watch out for is Eugene Asante. But LSU wide receivers now versus the Auburn DBs. Shifting towards that, the LSU room is led by the best 1-2 in the nation with Malik Neighbors, who is second in the nation in receiving yards, and then Brian Thomas Jr., who leads the NCAA in touchdown reception. So Auburn's defensive back room is led by senior Jalen Simpson, who leads the team with 4 interceptions. He had one against Georgia. It's a very good coverage guy. But what can we expect out of this matchup, knowing that Auburn will drop 5 guys?
LSU's gotten into this habit where they go with that classic fade route to the corner of the end zone that mostly works every time. Teams like Auburn, especially ones that drop more players back to pass, back to defend, they're going to pick up on that. Now, teams have seen it all year, and they haven't been able to stop it. So it's a tough play to defend. We know that Auburn is going to play a tough defensive game, but I'm going to love to see the ability of these receivers try and get open in space.
Yeah, for me, I think you're going to see a whole lot of running from LSU on their end. I don't think the passing attack is going to be as effective. These Auburn DBs, they're not exactly super talented. They're not bad, but when there is 5 of them back there, you kind of need to go back to that running attack. And we've seen what they can do, like I said, against Mizzou. You had, I want to say it was 274 rushing yards to be exact, but it was almost 300. And I think that if you can keep up that production, you don't even have to worry about those 5 guys.
Yeah, and I think with Auburn, like we said, playing lots of zone, I think they're going to play a lot of this week and account for that talent that LSU brings in the wide receiver room. There will be safety help with Neighbors and Thomas on both sides. I think LSU initially, though, they're going to find a way to get open like they always do. But will the LSU receivers keep up the production this week, or will it kind of drop off a little bit from, I mean, obviously it's been outrageous to see how crazy they've been going.
I think that it'll drop off, not in the sense of, like, they're playing bad. I think just because we're going to pass a lot less this week, so I think it'll look a little bit like it dropped off, but it's just because we run the ball so much. I think that's what's going to be the key to kind of scoring points in this Auburn team.
Yeah, right. I agree with Nathan. It's just going to be one of those ground and pound games. However, don't be surprised if we take those deep shots. Don't be surprised if we see a couple passing touchdowns, because it's going to happen.
Yeah,
you can't say that we're not going to see.
Yeah.
You know,
right. You have one of the best passing attacks in the country. It'll still happen. I just think that the numbers might be a little bit skewed down, just because of how heavy I think this run game is to be.
Yeah, I think in this game, I think LSU is going to establish the run game first. And once Auburn starts committing to that, I think that's going to open up LSU's deep ball. I think that's when they're going to, expect to run maybe one play, maybe do a play action, and that's going to allow Thomas or Neighbors to kind of break free. But I think they're going to find ways to get open, and this is going to be a game where a little feels like a lot. With Auburn, like we said, dropping back 5, the middle of the field will be open. Guys like Malik Neighbors and Mason Taylor very good at slants, getting open in the middle of the field. So I don't think it drops off, but it just comes from less big plays this week. But for Auburn, what do their DBs have to do in order to contain the duo of Neighbors and Thomas?
Pray, bro. You gotta just get out there, take a knee on the field in the pregame, and pray. Because these guys, just like I said, I don't think they have the talent to keep up with one of the best wide receiver duos in the country. I think the volume of 5 guys out there will be very helpful to them. But I just think skill-wise, they're not going to be able to keep up.
Yep. Okay. So you can play the zone defense, and you can drop 2 guys back and play double coverage on both of them. But that just comes with the massive risk of someone else being wide open. And LSU's got other players that can hurt you. Now, we're not going to see Chris Hilton this week. He will be out. Brian Kelly said that yesterday. Kyron Lacey, your big game is coming up, man. Like, it's time for you to show that you can be the guy here, one of the next great LSU receivers. And like you said, with these running backs getting out in the flats and just getting open, watch out for them.
Yeah, I agree with you as far as the running backs. I think they're actually underutilized, and this week they are going to be used. But like I mentioned, Auburn safeties will have to just get help wherever the corners are really struggling out there, and that's going to be on Neighbors and Thomas. But if they don't, I think it's as simple as the speed from Neighbors and height from Thomas. It's going to be way too overwhelming for these Auburn corners in one-on-one matchups. But we're going to shift gears now and switch sides of the ball. Talk about the Auburn offense and how they shape up against a struggling LSU defense. Auburn has been struggling to score this season, and the LSU defense has struggled to get stops on defense. That's no surprise. So this will be definitely the most important matchup of the night tomorrow. So starting off with Peyton Thorne, the quarterback for Auburn, the transfer from Michigan State. He can hurt you with his legs, but he struggles to read defenses and get rid of the ball. How can the LSU defense in general take advantage of those struggles he's been having?
They can be a pesky force. They can take advantage of a lot of plays where they're able to get pressure. Like you said, he's one of those guys that'll burn you on the ground. That happened last year against Auburn. And LSU's been victim to a couple of scrambling quarterback disaster classes. We saw with Bo Nix when he was here 2 years ago, our freshman year. That was horrible. You do not want to have a repeat performance.
KJ had his way.
And KJ had his way. Bryce Young made stuff happen last year in the Bama game. We see it day in and day out sometimes with some of these guys. Jackson Dart was making plays happen on the ground. You want to be able to get to the quarterback. You want to have pass breakups, which were all over the place last week. Mason Smith had a very notable one in a big scenario last week. So you just want to be able to get your hands up, too, with the opportunity to have a pass breakup, too.
I think this is going to be a big game for the defensive line. They looked majorly improved last week than they had for the rest of the season. P. Jenkins' effect is real, man. It's very noticeable, and I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Thorne this week and just totally discombobulate him.
Yeah, this is a weekend where LSU should really use Harold Perkins all night to get to Thorne. If you get to Peyton Thorne early, this might be a blowout. And I'm saying this because pressure will be it's going to have to be applied for LSU to feel comfortable tomorrow. But Peyton Thorne does not do well with pressure. You look at it, he's thrown lots of interceptions. He's turned it over. But what does Thorne have to do better this week to be able to get the offense rolling?
You got to make sure you complete those passes that are like, hey, you were wide open. I got to hit you. I have to convert on third down. Because we saw that against Georgia, and especially on third and fourth down when they would risk it on fourth down. The play calling could have been better, let's be honest, but the execution is really where it comes down to the quarterback.
Yeah, for me, I think he's just going to need to get the ball out fast. Like I said, that defensive line is going to be coming for him. They're going to be all up in his face. If he can get it out quick, roll out of the pocket maybe, we know how this LSU secondary can hold up. And it's not pretty. So if he can kind of beat them, the defensive line on that speed, I think he might be able to do a little damage.
Yeah, I agree with you, but for me, it's just play smarter. He tends to throw many balls into double coverage, and this is a week where you really just can't afford to do it against an opposing offense that can really make you pay for it. Yeah. So, starting with the offense, the Auburn offensive line, they allowed 3 sacks against Georgia the entire game. They are an experienced group, though, led by Dylan Wade, who transferred in from Tulsa this past summer, but they have struggled in terms of pass blocking and keeping Thorne clean, as LSU is coming off of a 2-sack lead against Mizzou. So how does LSU match up this weekend against Auburn's offensive line, and can they finally get consistent pressure in a struggling Auburn offensive line?
We saw it last week against Mizzou. The pressure was there. They brought the pressure, and they made plays behind the line of scrimmage, something that LSU has had to do, and I've kind of preached that they've had to do all season. They had that huge third down forced fumble that pushed Mizzou back 20 yards and ended up making them go for it on 4th and 32, which was a pretty interesting decision. But hey, and you force them to try and kick a lot of field goals, and their very favorite kicker who missed 2 field goals after being revered as the giant leg that kicked the historic field goal against Kansas State. What you want to do is you want to get to the quarterback and allow and don't let them get in field goal range. Just keep them on the other side line of scrimmage. Just make sure they bring that pass rush, because you saw it last week as well. When you rush the quarterback, you force the quarterback to make a lot of dumb decisions.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said earlier, man, they've made major improvements. I really just think they're going to have their way with this Auburn offensive line. I don't see them struggling. There's not a whole lot of talent on that offensive line. Like I said earlier, Auburn is just...
The talent drop-off has been apparent. It's going to happen because Hugh Freeze is just coming in, right? And that's going to happen. But I think the LSU defensive line will get more pressure than what we've been seeing, all right? I think with that, I'll say this weekend, I think they get 3 sacks tomorrow night on David Thorne. But with the addition of Pete Jenkins, let's talk about it. What kind of improvements do you expect to see this weekend with them?
Just like we saw last week, one of the main things for me was playing close to the line of scrimmage. That was a big issue in the first couple of games of the season. They were playing, it looked like almost a yard off the line of scrimmage, which is just...
Huge advantage to the offensive line.
Exactly. I don't know how you can do that. But another thing I think Pete Jenkins brings is just some fire to this team. That was one thing that we complained a lot about for the first couple of weeks of the season. So these guys just looked like they weren't playing with any fire. And now Pete Jenkins comes in. He's coming in, yelling at the refs with Brian Kelly, with his little sun hat on. He's probably got his sunscreen on his nose and everything. And he's getting these guys fired up, and that's what you love to see.
Right. We kind of saw it past couple weeks. Kind of like Matt House wasn't believing in his guys. And then when you bring in an old soul like Pete Jenkins, he's going to bring that old school mentality that we really want to see. To kind of just like get to the quarterback, get him, make the tackle machine is what we want to grow out of these guys. And we saw some great halftime adjustments made too.
Yes.
Against Mizzou. That was the biggest thing, and it's something that we haven't seen all year until last week. Where have the halftime adjustments been? Just go out and just let them pop on their phones or just go to the bathroom or something like that? No. Sit in for the halftime meeting and listen.
Yeah, and I think with the addition of Pete, LSU will be more sound mechanically on the line. Like Nate said, we're going to see them line up right on the ball this weekend. And fix the problems, filling gaps. We've seen that really be an issue with the LSU linebackers, especially. But like Lewis said, when you see an 82-year-old, just on the sideline, fired up, I think that's going to get the defensive line guys to really go out there and play with some heart, right? But the biggest matchup of the game, in my opinion, will be the Auburn wideouts against these LSU DBs. Auburn wideouts are about as talented as Miss State's group, but they still have talent, right? This is an SEC team. They can still play. LSU ranks 121st in the country in passing defense, so it's very evenly matched. So how do the LSU DBs shape up against the Auburn's wideouts this weekend? And can this finally be the weekend that LSU kind of holds up?
I mean, look, you said LSU has the 121st ranked passing defense. I saw a stat that Auburn has the 121st ranked passing offense. This is truly a movable object versus a stoppable force kind of matchup. I don't think it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. I'm going to be honest, I don't really have any good expectations, at least for this LSU secondary at this point. At least not any high ones. I think they did look better in the second half against Mizzou. Credit where credit's due. They only allowed 14 points, which is what you need from this defense. If they can allow just a couple, if they can make a couple stops like we saw last week, the offense can outscore the opposing offense, and that's what you need. But I'm just not totally convinced yet after just one half of good defense. I need a little bit more than that.
They just play a full 4 quarters of football. We saw how they did it in the second half last week. If we can see them come out and just play with that same intensity that they did last week, I think it'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest question of the night. I think this is a weekend where LSU can really go out with the momentum they left with in Columbia and really just shape up against an Auburn wide receiver corps. It's about as good as the matchup that you see this year. So what does LSU have to look out for on the Auburn offense, though?
Brian Kelly said yesterday that this is an Auburn defense that chooses to run the ball. They choose not to throw. And you're kind of thinking, so are they just not going to throw the ball at all?
Right.
Obviously, they're going to incorporate this passing offense, but at the same time, if BK's saying this, you got to kind of wonder, are we not prepping as hard for the pass game because this is an Auburn team that chooses not to pass? That kind of concerns me a little bit, so you're going to want to watch out because you don't want to go in with these expectations that you're just going to ground and pound the whole game.
As far as Auburn's offense, like you said, I just think Jarquez Hunter, their running back, is going to be a guy to look out for. He was able to do some pretty considerable damage against Georgia, and if LSU doesn't just shut him down and really pay attention to him, I think he can do some damage against us too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that LSU DBs have to account for Jay Fair, their leading receiving guy, but most of all, their tight end, Rivaldo Fairweather. This is a guy who's second on the team in receiving yards, and he plays like a wide receiver, but he's built like a tight end. So what does LSU need to do? Do they need to play zone coverage or kind of trust that man?
I'm going to go with the zone coverage rather.
Yeah.
Because the zone coverage is kind of it has struggled, but you got a quarterback that can make stuff happen on the ground.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to contain him.
I would like to see him test out some man coverage this weekend. You've played zone, it feels like almost every snap of the season so far, which obviously it has worked where it's worked for you, but you finally have a matchup against a really bad passing attack. I say let your DBs get out there and try and do their thing. If it doesn't work, you go in and make those adjustments and switch back to zone.
Yeah, I actually think this LSU can really get away with playing man coverage this weekend, kind of like Nate said. But with the way you've been playing zone, I think you should play zone in this one again, just because they've looked better in zone. They look better. So finally, who will get a turnover for this LSU defense this week, if any?
I'm gonna have a hot take. There won't be one.
Oh, wow.
I like that. I almost went with that.
Yeah, there won't be a turnover. We've seen the past couple of weeks we're on a little turnover high because we had 2 picks last week and forced fumble. We should have had a recovered fumble, but sometimes the calls don't go our way.
I almost went with that. I almost said no, and then I was like, you know what? I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to make not boring pick because I almost agree with you. Smart take. Yeah, I figure I'll have a little fun.
Fun pick.
Yeah, I'll have a little fun with it. I'm gonna say Harold Perkins. Again, I think he'll go 2 games in a row. He had a pick last week, which was awesome to see. I think this weekend, he'll have a little forced fumble or fumble recovery.
Nathan's got the idea with Perkins against Auburn. He had one last year against LSU legend Coy Moore.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And Coy Moore does make his return back to Baton Rouge. That'll be interesting. But for me, I'm going to go with the freshman this week. I'm going to go Ashton Stamps gets a big interception. We've been seeing the freshmen really involved in playing DB, especially. Obviously, Deuce Chestnut will be out. Again, his timetable is not known. So it's time to give our score predictions. Tomorrow night, Death Valley will hold 102,321 people, and LSU will take on Auburn at 6 p.m. Central. What do we have?
Do I want to go with a blowout or do I want to go with a close one? The spread's 11 points. I'm going to take Auburn to cover, but by 9, LSU secures the victory.
Do you have a score or just 9 points?
9 points.
Okay.
I like it. So look, man, for me, you look at this game, everything points to a pretty convincing LSU win, right?
But there's a but.
This is LSU Auburn. It's the final installment of this rivalry. It's the final chapter in one of the most storied, weird, and honestly underrated rivalries in college football. From earthquakes to fires,
Tiger Bowl.
Tiger Bowls to cigars, crazy comebacks.
The earthquake game.
Rain
game.
Now you've got a solar eclipse coming this Saturday. I just think it's the perfect way to send this rivalry off into the sunset, as much as it sucks. And I do hate the conference realignment taking this away from us.
Yes.
But I think we get an absolutely epic battle. I think it's going to be gritty. It's going to be tough. And I think LSU comes out on top 30-27.
34-27, I like it.
30-27.
Oh, 30-27. Okay. Oh, Tigers by field goal. Okay, so I think this is a game where LSU actually doesn't score as much, just because I think their offense is out there on the field longer than usual. But I think the defense actually shapes up this weekend. I know it's a rivalry. I get that. There's going to be, like we said, an eclipse. But it's going to be a total solar eclipse of the heart for Auburn this weekend. And we're going to see LSU win this one, 34-17. But lastly, we have some time. So tell me who you have this weekend with some of these games coming up. First off, Oregon-Washington. This is the biggest game of the week, no doubt.
This is going to be an offensive shootout. It is the 2 teams in front of LSU with the best total offense in the nation. You've got Michael Penix, absolute dark horse Heisman contender.
Heisman, guys.
And, well, not dark horse at this point. He's the favorite.
Nope.
He's the favorite. And Bo Nix, who's got higher odds than Jaden Daniels. I don't know about that.
See how long that lasts.
Yeah. Oregon's a 3-point favorite. Washington's a 3-point favorite at home. This was an all-time classic game last year, if you all remember that, with Washington going on the road and winning by a field goal to secure a victory, a huge road victory against the Ducks.
They weren't supposed to win that game.
No, sir. So I'm going to take the Washington Huskies to win this one.
I like it. Now you've got Washington at home, too. and that Washington Stadium gets loud, man.
It does.
And I think that Michael Penix is going to keep up his Heisman campaign, and I think he's going to blow off in this one.
See, I'm going to disagree with you guys on this one. I think this is a game where obviously offense matters, but defense more so matters. And I think we've seen a better defense from Oregon in the past weeks. It's just a hunch for me. I think Oregon's going to come out and get the road win. But next up, Missouri, Kentucky, really quickly.
I'm going to go with the Mizzou Tigers to win. It's a small spread. Kentucky favored by 2. Mizzou's going to win.
I think this will be a good game. I'm going to go with Kentucky. I just really like this Kentucky team. Something about them. I think they're scrappy, and I think they'll pull it off this weekend.
I'm going to go Mizzou. I think they finally bounced back after a loss, obviously, to LSU last weekend. But USC Notre Dame should be an interesting one. I don't know what your take on that.
Give me the Trojans. Going on the road, they got to have a nice response against them barely eking out Arizona last week.
I also like the Trojans.
Yeah, I'm also going Trojans, but I could see Notre Dame winning this. But Miami, Florida at UNC, give me that one real quick.
Give me UNC. Miami's in shambles. There's no coming back from a loss like that.
Yeah, I think that was a brutal hit to the locker room. I
Yep.
think I'm going to go with UNC.
Yeah, I'm going UNC as well. Finally, UCLA at Oregon State.
Give me the Beavers. I love DJU right now. He's making it happen. Give me the Beavers.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more. I like DJU right now.
I'm going Oregon State as well. But that will do it for us here today on the KLSU Tailgate Show. Big thank you to Nathan Messina and Louis DeVita for joining me. Also, big thank you to Kent Lowe and Michael Bonnet, LSU Athletics Communications, for allowing us to bring you guys this content here at Tiger Stadium. I'm your host, Andre Champagne, and this has been the KLSU Tailgate Show. He's the jerk.
It is over. It's in the show.
What?
Show's over.
What's on?
No, our show's over. Stream is not done.
Should be. Show it to him.
It's never been more over than it is now. We're dead, yeah.
We're just still on camera. Everything
Oh,
on.
you can hear that.
Did you turn off our lights yet? Should be still here. Never been more over. It's a good luck. You get close. Get close.
It's a beautiful day today.
It is. And there's some wrist.
As you can see,
No,
my
that's the,
line is,
that's the AC.
it's beautiful.
Wonderful weather we're having.
As you can see, we're gonna break this right now while we're on screen.
I already did.
And is it getting likes?
On mine, yeah. It's got a little bit. I posted on both.
Did you hashtag it?
Yeah.
Hit the little hashtag.
Got a little hashtag.
Hashtag action.
Hashtag. Oh yeah, it's got a little traction on yours, dude.
How many?
Kidding me?
How many? How many likes?
It's 96 and 99. It keeps going up. You're funny, dude. You're funny, dude.
It's just a little bit. It's not crazy.
Crazy.
That's
How many reposts it got?
That's fine.
16. Yeah. Shout out.
One quote.
Shout out.
It is not caught up yet the stream.
How long? How much longer? Actually, it's gonna be the pink
soon as we can shut down. Thank you, Miss Cindy. Appreciate it. You don't wear any pink?
No,
I'm thinking about it.
Even though I look pretty in pink, you know what I'm saying?
I might do a little, like the
little ribbon.
I have one on my backpack. I might do that.
Great show, guys.
Great
Very
show.
good show.
Great show. Guten Show.
Do you like my tribute to Auburn versus LSU?
Yeah. You like my total eclipse of the heart?
That was funny. That was good.
Doesn't that mean like sad?
I have no clue, but it was funny.
I think it is. Like, you know the song Total
Yeah, I know the
Eclipse
song.
of the Heart. When I said solar eclipse.
Oh, I wish I'd taken the picture now, and now it's filled in with the purple.
Well, I'll be doing that.
You know what? I'm just going to copy it.